Okay, let's try that again with volume this time, since I didn't turn it on. Hi, my name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm with Melco's application team doing our Design Shop Talk today. We're live on both Facebook and YouTube. If you have questions while we are live, please type them in on the chats. My consolidated chat window is not showing up, so I'm going to have to bounce back and forth between the two platforms to see what's going on. But we'll still get them all answered. So if you see me looking off to the side, I have another monitor set up where I can keep track of that stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and jump straight into the questions that I had ahead of time, and then we'll go from there. All right, so this one says, might be odd, it's not exactly embroidery, but can you show us how to go over taking an embroidery file and converting to a vector for use with a laser or cutting device? Okay, so one of the things to keep in mind with that is what technology you're using, okay? Because a laser or a cutter, you have a few, well, specifically with a laser, you've got additional considerations because the laser is going to burn material away, making the shape smaller. You've got to check with your manufacturer. I think the term for that, at least my manufacturer always called that the kerf. So I had to find out what the kerf was, of basically how wide is the beam that's going to be burning it, so that I know how much larger to make my shape. Okay. It may not be that critical for you, but just keep that in mind. If you're using a laser, it's going to burn material away, so you're going to have to compensate for that somehow. Okay. So what you would do is, all right, there's a few different ways to handle this. So let's say we have applique. We used an applique input method, and I'm just going to draw a circle. Okay, so I've got my little applique here, and I want to take that shape and save it off to be used by my laser or by a cutter. So what format do you need? It's probably an EPS or an SVG or something like that. But what you can do here is, if this is an applique like that, it's really quick and easy, right? You do File, Save Applique Outline. You can tell it to be an SVG or an EPS, whatever format your thing wants. And you can save it off as a circle or as whatever shape is, and that will save the shape you want cut. All right. Now, if you are not using the applique, so let's say you drew, you know, when I draw my funny house. All right, so let's say I did that, and that's the shape I want my laser to cut. All right, well, or the cutter. The same thing happens, but now you've got to save this off as a different format. Now, if this is a full design, right? So you've got a bunch of different shapes in here. What I always do is I take the shape that I want to cut, which in this case is this step right here, this walk, and I copy it, Control C, I go to a new file and paste it. Why do I do that? Just so I have one thing to look at. You could turn all the others off, but I always paste it into a new file so I know that the shape I want. Now, if you're dealing with a laser and you need to make it bigger, this is where you'd have to adjust for that kerf. Okay, so if you need to offset it to be a bigger shape, you would do it here. You can go into and save it to a vector by converting to vector if you want. I always just go straight, leave it in whatever format embroidery it is, do File, Save As, change it to my EPS or SVG and save it off and be done with it. Okay, and that will save off the shape. Now, if you do need to make it bigger, what are some options there? Well, you want to do an offset, but offset, or that's how I do it. So offsets only work with fills. So I got this as a walk, so I'm going to have to convert that to a fill. So I can say vector fill just to make it easy and say replace. So now I have a vector fill, and I can do object, offset, outline. My laser requires a 6-point kerf. All right, so I'm going to offset by 6 points. And now if I do File, Save As, I can save as my EPS or SVG. And there you go. That'll save it off so that you can import it into your tooling, whatever, you know, your software requires for your device. Okay. Let me quick look. I don't see any questions typed in yet. Okay. So hopefully that helps some. Like I said, I rarely convert to a vector first. I always just save it off as a SVG or an EPS, depending on what software I have to go to. All right, so just keep in mind, if you're using a laser, it may not matter, but just remember it's going to burn away some of the material. So you might want to talk to your manufacturer to see if it's even relevant. How much is it burning away? Like I said, my particular equipment is a 6-point curve, a 6-point material disintegration. All right, what other questions do we have? Graphic to embroidery assistant. Okay, so yeah, the video that you saw was for V11. And V11 made a lot of fantastic improvements to the graphic to embroidery conversion. So that video goes through everything. Now, I do not have version 10 installed on this computer anymore to be able to pull up and show you the prior versions. It's all still there. All the same steps. It's just arranged differently across the top. So, you know, where they were doing inserting stitch directions, it's actually up there on the ribbon. It's just organized in an interesting manner. But overall, V11, they made so many fantastic changes to it to where it works a lot smoother and easier to use, which is that video you saw. I don't have any videos on 10. I asked some of the guys, they don't have them either. So we'll have to see if I can get it reinstalled on this computer. I only have V11 though at the moment, so I don't have it to be able to demo for you. But do check out that video if you haven't seen the graphic conversion assistant. There's some links for you in the chat, so that'll take you to some of those videos that are really good and kind of walk you step by step through using it. Yeah. So this one says, I stumbled across a video about laser alignment. Does that come standard with DesignShop 11? Okay, so first off, laser alignment doesn't have to do with DesignShop. DesignShop is just your digitizing tool. Okay, that's what creates your stitch files. Who is calling me? I'm not answering. All right, so DesignShop is just creating the files that you're going to go. So in the OS, that's where a laser alignment comes into play. And I know laser alignment is standard, I think, for everything. Whoever's helping me on chat, the only one I'm not 100% sure on is the Bravos, if it's included on all Bravos, or I don't remember, honestly. I think it's included on all of them. I think. So laser alignment is fantastic. I use it all the time. I mean, probably 30 to 50 times a day. That's how much I use it. So it's really convenient. So basically what you do is you set up your design however you're going to do it. And you've got to think about it a little bit and plan how you're going to... okay, so they just typed in... All right, so if you're running a Maya Lite for Bravo, so that's one of the older ones, then you don't have laser alignment, but for the others you do. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, back to laser alignment. So you set up your design for what you're going to do. So let's say you're doing a left chest pocket, all right, and you want your design to go right over your pocket, and you want it to be positioned 1/2 inch above your pocket. So let's go set up a design for that. All right, so I have DesignShop. Ooh, that's a pocket if I flip it upside down. All right, so let's pretend that's a vector. That's where my pocket is. So I have that in here just as a reference so we can look at it. So let's pretend that's our pocket on our shirt. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to type in whatever we want over it. Text and design, whatever. I'm going to do that just to have some text. So what you're going to think about is how far above the top of your pocket do you want it to go? My grids are set on a 1/2 inch spacing. So let's say I want it to be 1/2 inch above to that lower descender. Okay, so it's a little bit taller, but it's straight, it's lined up. I can go ahead and center this all, and let's pretend that's where we want it. Okay, so your laser alignment is going to be, the points you choose are along this horizontal line. So by centering it on this and positioning it however far you want it to be, now when I hoop it, I can use the physical pocket for my alignment points. Good morning, Georgia. Thanks for joining. Okay, so how does that look? You go grab your hoop and you hoop your shirt, putting it so you can see both corners of the pocket, right? So let me turn on a hoop. All right, that hoop's a little bit obscene for this design. Whatever. Let's turn on my hoop. All right, that hoop's too small. I need another hoop. So let's add a hoop. Mighty Hoops, where are you? Let's do 10 by 10. That's a good hoop. There we go. All right, so I added my 10 by 10 Mighty Hoop. There we go. All right, so that means when I save this file out, I can then hoop my shirt, and it does not have to be straight like this, right? So yes, I saved it off, but you can actually hoop it however you want. I mean, it can be crooked as heck. It just has to be in the hoop, all right? So you can actually hoop it like that. Your design stays like this though, all right? Because what's gonna happen is you hoop it however you're gonna hoop it, and then you come to your first point, which is on the left, and you say laser left, you move your pantograph over here. On your keypad, you say laser left, and then you say laser bullseye. It's a sequence, it's just commands, right? So here they all are. So this is the one you want, laser left, laser bullseye, okay? And what that's going to do, it's gonna rotate your design and center it right along that pocket. So your design will be centered and lined up parallel to your pocket perfectly. So that's one scenario of what you can do with it. Now, let's say you're not quite sure where you want it, but you want to print out something full size and tape it to your shirt and use that for your points. Okay, you can do that too. So if I go grab my one day, again, you've got to have your origin on, and I like to print it with grid as well. So when you go to print, to make it print in full size with the grid and all those things you're going to need, you've got to turn on those options in the print, the DesignShop printer thingy. That's a really technical term, I'm sorry. So right there, if I click on origin, I can click on grid, so now those are highlighted, and I can say actual size. So page 2, when it prints out, it will now print all that. Okay, so I can use that red line as my guideline and set my point. So I can pin it there, measure from the center red the exact same distance over from each way. So I might choose that point there, and yeah, so let's say that line and that line right there. So it has to be on that red line. I can pin it to my shirt, hoop it however I want, and do that same laser left, laser bullseye by moving my pantograph around. So I move to this point, say laser left, I move to this point, I say laser left, and then immediately after that, laser bullseye. It'll rotate it and align it directly over wherever you pinned or taped that paper. Okay, so it's super handy. You can also use it for continuous embroidery and things like that. Again, that's pretty fun. So I think there's some good videos that were done around Christmas time a few years ago. And there's another one that's a big banner that had some branches and a pumpkin in the middle. The one around Christmas was repeating holly, that shows how to do step repeats. So rather than laser left, laser bullseye, it's actually using one of the other commands, which is laser left, laser right, laser bullseye, which is less justify. Okay, so all these features right here, what I copied and pasted out here, came straight from your OS manual, so you can get all those under your laser alignment options. It's in the manual, but it's a super handy thing that almost all the machines have. Like I said, I think only the ones running AOS Lite don't have it. So if you haven't tried it, you totally should. My favorite part of it was not having to worry about hooping right. And that's a little childish, because hooping straights, once you get the hang of it, isn't hard. I just didn't want to have to think about it. So I just hooped how I felt like it. So, all right. Let's see. What else do we have? Large letter. Okay, so we talked about printing and laser alignment. So we did that. Oh, satin stitch with the auto split. Okay, so when you have let's go draw one so we can see the issue. Go away. Nope. All right, so let's say I'm going to do basic block, split. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to turn those off so we don't have to stare at them. And I'm going to turn this into 3D and make it bigger until I start seeing the issue. There, okay. All right, so you notice we've got this going from a nice satin stitch to a random fill. So you'll see satin, but then you'll see little areas of random fill through all this. All right, that's because the columns are too large. And if you go into your properties, that is being driven by the top stitch. All right, how did I get to properties? I right click, properties. Then I went to the top stitch tab. This number right here is what's driving when this is going to switch over into a fill versus satin. Okay, so how you read this is 80 points. All right, so when any stitch from one side of an element to the other gets larger than 80 points, it's going to start changing into a fill. Why is that? Because one, that's the number, that's the threshold you told it here in the properties. But practically speaking, the longer the stitches get, the more likely you're going to have issues with them, with pens snagging them, going in and out of pockets, with laundering. It's just not going to look clean if you've got a 1-inch piece of thread laying there. It's going to be easy to pull, so your embroidery is not going to look good. So when you have those really wide columns, the software is automatically going to try to help you by splitting it into this random pattern. Well, let's say you don't want to do random. You want it to do kind of a faux satin, if you will, which is a common auto split. If you come down to these presets here and change it to common auto split, that will automatically do a split down the middle. So when this sews out, it'll end up looking kind of like two satins almost. It'll still have more of a satin look than that random fill. Okay, you can either use an auto split, which changes all the lettering. So you see that? It's all split. You can do the common auto split, which will only change it for the areas that are in that threshold of too large. Okay, so that's where they are. If you don't do any of those, let's say it stayed at default, apply, whatever, undo, I want it to go back to my random. There, so let's say we had it set to random. If you want to fix it yourself, you can always tell it to go standard, change this to 6, change that to 501, 501, and 90. And apply that, and that will make your auto split down the center. Okay, so if you don't remember the magic code, that's cool. Just put it at common auto split and it will do it for you. Notice that's what it sets. Okay, yeah, so knife tool is just split element at selected points. So someone typed in, is there a knife tool? I'm trying to do a quarter circle. All right, so first let's draw a circle. So I got myself a circle. I'm going to turn on the grid and center it so I can have some guidelines of where I want to split it. I'm going to add a point there and a point there. So I usually like to split it not near where that is because particularly on contiguous circles it tends to separate them. But so I'll pick that point right here. I'll go to hold this down and you'll see split element at selected points, and notice that cut it right there. Okay, so I can then just delete points, so that's one way. Or I can come over here and say split element at selected point and delete this guy. So this, you select the point, that right there is your knife tool. It's split element at selected point. Okay, now if it's a fill, it works a little bit different. So let's say you drew let's say we did a fill circle. So I'm going to delete that, center it again. And let's say I still want to do a split there. A really convenient way to do it is to use this insert splice, insert curve splice. I'm going to click there, hold my alternate key to keep it straight. Okay, so I added a splice line. Okay, if I then right click on this guy, go to operations, break object, it's going to split it into multiple shapes. Okay, another way you can do that. So let's say I do the curve splice again, but this time I go like that. All right, rather than split it, if you still want to use that split element at selected points, I can click on one edge of that splice line, hold my control key down, and select on the other one. So I don't have to select all the points that created that line. All right, and then I can say split element at selected point, and now it'll split that up for me. Okay, so there's a bunch of ways you can do it. You can use that split element at selected point. You can break apart the object if you add different splice lines, but it all gives you the same result. Okay, Georgia, does that help? Let's see. Any other questions so far? I don't see any typed in. Okay, so we did our splice line, and we talked about laser alignment. So those were the questions I had sent in ahead of time. So anything else before I jump off for the day? I'm gonna go try to go scuba diving tomorrow, so maybe. We'll see. See how the water is. I get extremely seasick, which is funny because I participate in a lot of water sports. So it's kind of funny that I get very seasick, but whatever. Gonna try to go scuba diving and look at some lobsters. What other questions might you have? Nothing? Let me scroll. Nope, scrolling's not getting me anywhere. Nothing on Facebook. Okay, y'all. Well, I guess everyone have a fantastic weekend. Ah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, that split element, I use it all the time too. Same with the break apart, I use that one a lot. Oh, one thing I will say, if you do a bunch of splice lines and you do split element at selected point using just one of them, you'll lose all the other splice lines. So when you have an object that has multiple splices, always use break apart, because then it will break them all rather than you having to keep redrawing them. Okay. Well, you guys have a fantastic weekend. School starts next week for us here. Woohoo. I am so ready to be back on a normal schedule with the kids and not this, Mom, I want to go. Mom, can we go here? Mom, can we go there? I'm done with that. So you guys have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Next week we're aiming for Friday. So let me know what you want to chat about and we'll try to get some questions answered. All right, everyone. Have a great day. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.